The Duke machine is powered by Bobby Hurley, the 6-foot senior from Jersey City. He sets the tone for the entire team. He averages 18 points and almost 8 assists a game and should set the all-time assist record before he's done. Meanwhile, the young Maryland Terrapins still trying to find their way. Consistency is needed, and the seniors are asked to come up big, like Kevin McClinton and Evers Burns. They're being asked to be even bigger today.
Raycom and Jefferson Pilot Sports present the best in college basketball. The Atlantic Coast Conference. Today's game is brought to you by U.S. Air, Bud Light, Nations Bank, Food Line, Lowe's, Ford, Pepsi, and by Nationwide Insurance.
Good afternoon. We're glad you could join us. Cole Fieldhouse sold out for this game between the 7th-ranked Blue Devils of Duke and the Terrapins of the University of Maryland. Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Brandt along with Bucky Waters. And Bucky, has no secret about it. Duke is heavily favored. But let's talk about the 4 keys to the game right out of the bat. What do they have to do to get that win?
Well, Duke, the big problem for Duke is rebounding. If they're going to be an outstanding team, they've got to be running, which means they've got to clean the defensive board. And their last outing against San Francisco, a team with no player taller than 6'6", had 18 offensive boards. We had a chance to talk to Mike Krzyzewski about his concerns. Typically, he doesn't get upset in January, but he still cares.
We're very fair right now in rebounding and poor in defensive rebounding. We need to get a lot better because in the ACC, they exploit your weaknesses. And if you can turn a weakness into a strength, then that's how you become a really good basketball team.
No question, Bucky, they'll be focusing in on Kevin McClinton this afternoon.
Well, they remember very well in Cameron Indoor Stadium last year where Maryland lost by a deuce, and this guy had the last shot. He's a very powerful point guard, and he's the kind of a player, a physical guard, that gives Bobby Hurley difficulty. That is, if he has difficulty.
All right, let's talk about the 4 keys to the game for the University of Maryland.
Well, the transition game, Tim. It's a two-way street for Maryland. One, they've got to contain Duke. If Duke gets off running, they will absolutely steamroll these guys right out of College Park, somewhere in a Baltimore suburb. From the other side, here it is in action. Bobby Hurley on the lead pass. How many times have we seen that to the Hills on the receiving end, and they dunk it in your face? And the other thing, of course, is containing Bobby Hurley, who drives this team, the epitome of a point guard. And their job wasn't made easier when the Maryland students got on the little guy today. He did not take well to it.
Now, Bucky, I had a chance earlier today to talk to Maryland head coach Gary Williams, and I asked him about the youth of his ball club. Now, does that work for him or does it work against him? He was very positive when he talked about him.
Well, I think we have to get off to a good start to get confidence. I think with younger players, if they get some success early in the game, they can do it for 40 minutes, and we can't afford to get behind too early.
We're just about set. It's Duke and Maryland at Cole Fieldhouse. Right now, let's take you across the court. And here's Paul Cameron.
Thanks, Timmy, and welcome again, everybody. Of course, it's Super Bowl weekend. We've got a Super Bowl father-son connection on the floor for you this afternoon. Calvin Hill, running back for the Dallas Cowboys, played in the Super Bowl. His son, you know, Grant Hill from Reston, Virginia, nearby, playing forward for Duke. Then Harold McClinton, the late Harold McClinton of the Redskins, who was killed tragically on the side of the road, hit by a car after he had stopped to help someone. His son, Kevin McClinton, the point guard we've already talked about, a senior from Silver Springs. So some nearby home guys. We're going to try to settle things on the floor. Well, I'll be back at halftime. Tim and Bucky set to bring you the starting lineups. We'll come back to College Park after a word from our good friends at Bud Light.
Cole Fieldhouse is rocking. The Lowe's starting lineups. First for Duke, Antonio Lang, Grant Hill, Cherokee Parks, Bobby Hurley, and Thomas Hill. Head coach Mike Krzyzewski, quality guy, one truly great coach. If you don't respect that, he's been to the Final Four since 1988, won back-to-back titles. Low starting lineup from Maryland: Exree, Hip, Burns, Kerwin, Rhodes, and McClinton. And the head coach for the Terrapins, 10-6, 1-5 in the Atlantic Coast Conference, is Gary Williams. Now in his 4th year, 59 wins in College Park, a 1968 graduate of this university. This will be fun. Come back. We're ready to start. After this word from Pepsi. That's not important. What is important is the fact that Duke has won 7 straight games here at Cole Fieldhouse, and the Terps control the tip. McClinton with Hurley on him, gets it to Burns. They pulled Cherokee Parks way out. That may be a strategy. Exree Hip has the baseline, but he stepped on it. Turnover number 1 from Maryland.
Gary Williams made the point very well. His team needs to get off to a great start, especially the young players. They did that against Oklahoma last week and upset the Sooners in Baltimore and did it handily. And they did it with great defense, holding the Sooners almost 20 points under their high-scoring average.
Foul called away from the basketball on Evers Burns. His first, the team's first.
Duke also important that they get away early. They have not done well when behind at the half.
Now it's turnover for the Blue Devils. Stepping on the line. Thomas Hill stepped back, stepped on the out-of-bounds line. So they're tied at turnovers, but we're still looking for our first points in the game. Evers Burns, Parks. And this foul called on Parks. That's his first, the team's first. And I can tell you right now, Bucky, Evers thinks he can take Parks to the hoop.
Well, certainly out there, Cherokee Parks is not at all accustomed to being out there, and it shows.
McClinton right over top of Hurley.
There's the power guard aspect. Guards that have given Bobby Hurley trouble, like King Rice, was just physically stronger. Kevin McClinton fits that role.
Grant Hill playing with a bad foot. This is Lang. Crowd wanted to walk, good, no call. Exree Hip on Hill. This is called on Hill, offensive. His first, the second on Duke.
Gary Williams getting his wish in that his young Terrapin club settling down nicely. Boy, look at how high Parks is out there trying to help hedge on that screen.
Evers Burns takes him inside. Kerwin gets it back. Jump hook coming. Rebound by Burns. Blocked by Parks.
That's why they want to get him away from under the basket.
No call. A reset.
Good pressure defense by the Terrapins.
Parks is open.
Excellent defensive job on the 3 perimeter players so far.
McClinton over Hurley again. Hill with the rebound.
Oh, and McClinton's taking it right at Hurley.
Ahead to Hill. 3 turnovers for the Blue Devils. And Rhodes brings it back. Thomas Hill took a shot to the chops.
Freshmen are not supposed to do that to seniors in the ACC.
Hill's checking all his bicuspids.
That rattling he hears sounds like Chicklets' teeth.
Terrapins turn it over. Sloppy beginning.
Tremendous emotion in this game.
Maryland has 2 turnovers. Duke has 3.
Maryland's got to capitalize on this good start, or rather poor start by the Blue Devils.
2-0 Maryland. Hurley stops. He cannot get it to drop. And there's Burns. Pulls the rebound, and the Terrapins bring it back.
They're clearing out. They're clearing out for Evers Burns to take Parks.
Entry pass again. They go down low. Clinton has it blocked. Maryland basketball. Strategy's obvious. They want McClinton down low with Hurley.
Yeah, and they're posting him up, but McClinton's got to. He's got to react faster because the Duke defense is collapsing quick. Boy, here comes Parks from the top of the key. He's like the lead boulder in an avalanche.
Rhodes for three. Too strong. Hurley will push it. Takes it himself. Hill with the follow and the foul.
Maryland worked so hard in practice yesterday on getting back. Transition defense. There's the little guy, through white shirts and all, takes everybody with him. A hustling Grant Hill on the offensive board with a chance for a three-point play.
Kerwin picks up the personal. Grant Hill goes to the line. 6'8", 225-pounder from nearby Reston, Virginia.
We'll put pressure now by the Devils.
Duke has its first lead of the ball game.
This is not token pressure. A hard trap down the floor.
Kerwin gets it across the timeline, but it was not easy.
Oh, that was an adventure.
Terrapins look surprised.
They'll see that again.
Certainly confused. Nice move by McClinton. The dish to Kerwin. 4-3 Terrapins.
McClinton able to break Hurley down with the power dribble, getting him in the paint, and then dishing.
Thomas Hill double pumps. Fight for the rebound. Rhodes has it.
Boy, everything going Maryland's way so far. The kind of a start they've been praying for. But it's only 4-3.
And very, very early. Hip, tough shot.
Oh, shit.
Followed by McClinton and taken away by Hurley. Talk about quick hands. Hurley for three. Out to Kerwin. This game up-tempo. Hip. Kerwin's all alone. Pulls the string. Parks with a rebound.
Boy, it looked like he had starch in that wrist. He just couldn't let it go. Tried to guide it in.
Thomas Hill kisses it in.
It's a delicate balance, Tim, for Maryland. They're not a good outside shooting team, so they need to take some transition baskets. They're really good running the floor themselves, but they're not as good as Duke, and they can't afford to get into that windshield wiper kind of a game.
Hip tried to get it to Rhodes. Poor pass. 15-10 to go in the first half. Duke 5, Maryland 4. We'll be back after a word from our good friends at Budweiser.
Hi, everybody. Paul Cameron back for side of the Duke-Maryland game. Now, just 4 minutes into the game, I know you're asking yourself, why is Duke all wearing black shoes and yet Grant Hill is wearing white shoes? Well, believe it or not, the Duke trainer thinks that there may be something in the black brand. It's the same brand, black style, that may be aggravating his ankle. Yesterday, Grant had his ankle x-rayed. He's got a bad sprain. Fellas, Tim and Bucky, I don't see him favoring it one way or the other.
Not so far, but there is a touch foul called on Johnny Rhodes. And there's a look at Grant Hill.
He did not practice yesterday, and there was great concern. Possible stress fracture, but x-rays proved positive. It's just a little sore.
Eric Meek in the ball game, giving Hill a breather. This is Blakeney who just checked in.
Johnny Rogers, welcome to the ACC. Kenny Blakeney from nearby DeMatha High School just blew right by the heralded rookie.
Marty Clark, Eric Meeks, and more now as well. So the bench certainly deeper on the Duke side. This is Evers Burns. Long rebound. They fight among themselves and lose it out of bounds.
Both teams really getting the shots they won at the break. Duke was 2 for 7, Maryland 2 for 9, which reflects hard defense and the emotion that we've seen early in this game.
Biggest lead of the game for Duke. 7-4 is our score. Hill. And I guarantee you, Gary Williams will be up early in this game. That's a couple of touch fouls, and he doesn't like them. X-Ray Hip picks up his first personal. And that's the 4th team foul against the Terrapins.
Mike Krzyzewski going to his bench early. Clark and Meek. And Blakeney.
Clark up top, gets inside to Meek, kicks it out to Hurley.
Only 2 starters on the floor right now for Duke. Just 6 minutes in.
Blakeney working on Rhodes. This is Clark. .55 to go in the first half. 7-4 is our score. Shot clock at 15.
1 and 2 in the league out there. Hurley, McClinton in assists. Hurley going to work on it.
Hill, offensive.
Good defense that time by X-Ray Hip. Very, very quick.
4 turnovers for Duke. 4 turnovers for Maryland. Thomas Hill goes out. Grant Hill comes in for the Blue Devils. McClinton inside to Kerwin. Tries to dish it to Burns and turns it over. Numbers aren't there. No reset. Look at Hurley penetrate to Meek. Blocked by Kerwin, and Kerwin is called for the foul. That's 2. 5 team fouls against the Terrapins.
Bobby Hurley gets where he wants to go, although he is getting off the floor more and more. That time he completed the pass. In the end of the overtime against Florida State, he came down the lane, got up in the air, and there was a crucial turnover that ended up costing the Blue Devils the game. He's at his best when he doesn't leave the floor. He's not a great leaper. He's not a Spud Webb. And when he can skate in there under control, jam on the brakes right in the middle of the lane, he usually has a menu to pick from.
Kerwin goes out of the game now with 2. Meek at the line. Can't get it to go. Dwayne Simpkins checks in. Interesting story. DeMatha High School, highly recruited. Really has not found his groove or his confidence here yet. But Gary puts him in early. As a guard for the Maryland Terrapins, they go to a smaller lineup.
Well, that could be a blessing in disguise. This smaller lineup may match up a little better with Duke. Certainly gives him greater quickness.
Rebound Rhodes. Here's Simpkins. To McClinton. Yes. One-point game.
Hurley, a totally different problem now. He's got a very quick Simpkins in front of him instead of the physical McClinton. McClinton now moves to small forward, really.
Psychologically, though, Simpkins was playing at DeMatha High School last year, watching Hurley in the national championship. Grant Hill kisses that one in.
Yeah, that's a big jump. It's only 12 miles, but it's a big jump. Bobby Hurley 17-1 in NCAA competition.
Here's Simpkins working against Hurley. Picks up his dribble, throws it away. Clark by himself, a gift. Biggest lead of the game for Duke. Johnny Rhodes in the paint, stops, fires, and hits. Say what you want, maybe outmanned, but certainly talented young players at Maryland.
Gary Williams has had to force freshmen into starting in pressure roles.
Rhodes, Simpkins, Burns. Freshman, senior, bang.
This smaller, quicker team could be a problem for Duke.
Rhodes on Blakeney.
Blakeney just willed and muscled his way in. We may see a switch there. McClinton may go to Blakeney.
11-13 to go in the first half.
That's the way they're matched up on this end.
Blakeney called for the foul. Oh, Bucky, are they calling this one close?
Yeah, there's so much emotion early. Very physical defensively. You know, as we saw the stats, 2 for 7, 2 for 9 shooting. Both of these teams are better than that, and they were getting good shots.
Timeout on the floor with 11:07 to go in the first half. And Duke leads by 3. Grateful for that, I guess, Bucky, because their shooting has not been that hot.
Well, it's still very early. There's only one more opportunity from the floor for Maryland, but this was Gary's great concern, that they get buried early, and certainly that hasn't happened.
This is Evers-Burns.
Boy, that was awfully easy, just off an inbound pass, giving up an unmolested 15-foot jumper.
Thomas Hill on Rhodes. Parks turns on Kerwin and scores.
Kerwin really outmatched in there physically. He gets an awful lot out of his body, but
he is every week, Bucky.
Yeah, but again, I think that smaller, quicker team from Maryland may be the catalyst if they're going to be successful today.
Burns rolls it in. Great pass from Kerwin.
Well, again, no pressure on the ball on the perimeter, but then you got to say, why should I go out and play Kerwin 30 feet from the basket? That's the reason. So he can't pick the defense by looking right from the top and making those easy passes.
Lang puts it on the floor, has it taken away. Maryland has a 4-on-1. Dwayne Simpkins, yes. How about the freshman?
Again, going back to that Oklahoma game, a lot of similarity between Oklahoma. Oh, yeah.
Grant Hill, offensive.
The Blue Devils are getting anxious. Instead of running their motion and getting something going with screens, that's a 7th Duke turnover. Most of it coming because they are very, very anxious to go one-on-one. They're not letting the flow get them going. And I'll tell you, these little young Terrapins are tough. You got to move him around a little bit.
Johnny Rhodes, tough shot. Partially blocked by Hill. Hurley touched by Simpkins in the foul. That's his first.
Bobby Hurley is so tough with that move. He looks like he's going to cross over in front of you, and he just kind of has watch it. Then he just blows by, and Dwayne Simpkins certainly does bump a little bit. But in the scheme of things, the way it's been going today, that wasn't a big bump.
Evers-Burns goes out. X-Ree hip comes back in. Rhodes takes it away from Clark. 3-on-2. Simpkins. No call. Rhodes with a follow. Parks blocks it.
The Big Chief ran the floor and bailed him out. Gary Williams wants a goaltending.
Probably should have had it. And Parks is fouled by X-Ree hip.
Both ends of the floor. Cherokee Parks ought to make the 6 o'clock sports. He comes from behind. Watch this. Little double clutch. That's about, Luganis would have been proud of that one. That was a 9-5.
Nicely done by Parks. Readjusted. Threw the foul and made the basket.
Yeah, but at the other end is where he really saved the bacon for the Blue Devils. There were white jerseys all over that offensive board, and he bailed them out with a reject.
Parks with 4 points, 3 blocks. Duke by 2. This is fun. I don't think anybody anticipated or expected this. Johnny Rhodes. Yes, for 3.
That's a shot Johnny Rhodes hasn't looked for on the road. 4 of the first 6 Maryland games in the ACC have been on the road. He's been a little timid looking for a shot. As usual with young players, a different player, more confident player at home.
Hill goes around Rhodes and banks it in. Wanted the foul.
Boy, he had his tonsils checked on that one, too. I'll tell you, they are really in-your-face defense.
8:30 to go, first half. We've had 8 lead changes thus far. Plenty to go on the shot clock, 25. Oh, what a shot by Kevin McClinton.
Your basic power guard. Nothing cute about him at the point. He breaks you down with muscle.
Cherokee Parks. 10 lead changes.
The Duke staff has been very pleased with the progress of Cherokee Parks. Coming along offensively, looking more assertive, looking for his shots, and getting more, definitely more assertive on that defensive board.
Rolls it in. Kevin McClinton. He now has 8 points, and Maryland leads again. Kevin McClinton 4 for 6. Good, strong move inside. And Antonio Lang has the bucket and gives Duke the lead.
Maryland not giving much help down inside, and especially the younger players need that. If you don't have pressure on the ball, Duke's going to throw it right to the paint and take it down your throat.
That 3-hit shot too strong. Parks. Here come the Blue Devils. Hill. Yes. 3.
Boy, that perimeter for Duke. If you're not on them, they'll take it quick. Where Duke has gotten in trouble trying to put the ball on the floor and go one-on-one with the bounce. That's what's gotten them the early charging fouls.
Just like that, Duke leads by 5. Simpkins too hard. Parks with the rebound. And the foul is called on Simpkins.
A freshman foul. Not good judgment. I don't think Simpkins could have taken that ball away from Cherokee Parks with an axe.
It's the 7th team foul against Maryland, so Duke is in the bonus now, shooting 1 and 1.
This is where they thrive. They get to that free throw line early because they attack the basket. They get your key people in foul trouble, and they shoot free throws.
This will be a big test here, Bucky, to see if Maryland can come back. They've been within a point or two most of the way. Here they drop down 27-23 with Parks at the line.
They've had 2 good wins. Oklahoma, we've talked about, also Louisville.
Ball on the floor, and Burns gets it back. Throws an elbow and says, "Get out of my face." McClinton. Nobody underneath for Maryland.
That's all right. They've got to take that shot.
Early for 3. Yes. Duke's biggest lead. It's 7. Maryland now watching Duke on a 10-2 run. Needs to put a finger in the dike.
Moving that ball, keeping Duke on defense a little bit will help right here. Burns again, trying to take Parks from the top of the key.
Bad shot. Getting away from Maryland here. Yes. Hill, Thomas. Maryland needs a timeout and takes one.
Doing a little coaching. Gary Williams won't give up on this team. There's a lot of fight left in him.
5:41 to go. The lead is 9. We'll be back after a word from our good friends at Bud Light.
Bobby Hurley doing what he does best, keeping the dribble alive, looking. Thomas Hill pops out, wide open, unmolested. Again, Maryland back, trying to jam up the paint and giving Duke the outside shot. Thomas Hill now with 9, and as we are seeing today, 1 and 2 in the ACC in assists. Hurley gaining on Chris Corciani, although he has 1 more game already. For national honors, he needs 96. And, of course, Kevin McClinton, who's been penetrating and worrisome to the Blue Devils all day. Also scoring a bit, I might add, Tim.
Another tough shot, banks it in. It's 32-25. That's the lead to 7. Hurley around Dwayne Simpkins. And that's offensive against Hurley. Went right into Everett Burns. Hurley's first.
Out of the timeout, I believe Gary Williams changed defense. We didn't get a chance to check it. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's going triangle in 2. Let's take a look at it next time, but it happened so quickly. Again, Duke making that quick thrust at the basket. Really didn't know what defense the Terrapins were in.
Bristol comes in the game from Maryland. Johnny Rose gets a breather. Everett Burns with a twist jumper. Air ball, but the follow underneath by McClinton. Partially blocked.
Clinton is omnipresent.
Thomas Hill picked up his dribble, almost got into trouble. This is Blakeney, and it's taken away by Maryland. The 11th turnover for the Blue Devils. Simpkins, tough shot. Fight for the rebound, he gets it back. This is McClinton. 12 points, 3 assists.
He's had some great performances, but he's all over that board. Offensive rebounding again, the bugaboo for the Blue Devils. San Francisco came into Cameron last week. Tallest player, 6'6", had 18 offensive boards, 12 at the half. I think the Duke team is trying to get out on that break without really staying at home to make sure they hold the defense to one shot.
Clark scores. He's fouled. Now Clark goes out. Blakeney goes out. Parks, Grant Hill, Lang, Thomas Hill, and Hurley on the floor right now for the Blue Devils. Parks at the line, 9 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 blocks. Rhodes and Kerwin check in for Maryland.
Mike Krzyzewski going into a deeper Duke bench, but he's playing more people. That could take its toll later. Gary Williams really doesn't have that kind of inventory right now, but he's gonna.
Parks is 65% free throw shooter.
Terrific stroke for a good guy.
Pushes the lead back to 8.
Very important right now for Maryland not to let the Blue Devils get off and go in with a 12, 13, 14-point lead.
Hurley all over, challenging him now. So McClinton takes him to the paint, can't get the drop. Good defense by Bobby Hurley that time. Maryland ball. .352 to go first half. 35-27 Duke. 2 for 7 from the field, but since that has hit 13 of its last 15 shots, and that has been the difference. 35-27 is our score. McClinton has the last 8 points for the Maryland Terrapins.
He's got to get extra hip into the game. I don't think, as well as McClinton is playing, he can beat Duke by himself. He's got to think about that point guard role and try to bring these other guys into it.
Evers Burns with the follow underneath, loses the handle. Excellent Duke defense as they start to close the gap here and score at the other end. Thomas Hill.
Boy, that's vintage Duke. Yeah, they take it away, but that's vintage Duke. A layup and two slashing blue jerseys go over the square. Thomas Hill lays it up, and here they come. Lang comes, and they're just all over it. That's when Duke's at its best. They just fly at that basket.
12 turnovers now for the Blue Devils. Mike Krzyzewski now throwing a little referee noise.
I think if McClinton is going to try to control the offense from the top of the key, I think Maryland has to move their set lower. Go 1-4, put them down, put the other 4 players on the baseline. Right now, he's beating his man. He's getting into the paint, and it's the help defense that's getting to him. If they will put their other 4 along the baseline, when he gets to the paint, if they come to help, he's got someone to pass to with some room to work. Right now, it's very crowded in there, and that helps the Duke defense.
That was the second foul on Thomas Hill. McClinton makes his first one. Very good free throw shooter. You know, that was Maryland's first shot from the line today.
I think Bobby Gary will mention that.
Makes them both. 35-29, Duke.
Right at 3 minutes. A 1-3-1 trap.
Grant Hill to Bobby Hurley for 3. Hill with the rebound. Reset the clock.
The 1-3-1 is a good defense to prevent the drive. It's not a very good one for defensive checkoffs.
Thomas Hill.
And Duke is taking its toll on that offensive board. Boy, that's discouraging. Maryland is playing good deep. They're getting the miss, but again, this particular defense is vulnerable. McClinton on the baseline.
Grant Hill again. He doesn't miss many. This one for 2.
Yeah, that's 1 for 4. On that offensive set, thanks to 3 offensive rebounds by the Devils. Duke now showing some zone.
They've had success the last couple of trips with this zone. Kerwin. Right over top of Parks.
Maryland has not been a good outside shooting team. Georgia Tech came in here, sort of experimented with his own, ended up playing it all night long because Maryland didn't cope with it.
37-31, Duke. Young Terps want to run. McClinton challenges Hurley a little bit. He'll accept that challenge. Nice pass inside. They can't convert it. Hill Thomas was all alone, had the alley-oop and couldn't convert it. Johnny Rhodes fires for three. Duke rebound. 3-on-1. Thomas Hill.
It's a blue landslide coming at you if you're caught back against that break. And the only chance you really have is to get in front and draw the charge. They're coming that hard. Most teams, you know, try to play the passing lane, try to block the shot. The best defense against those people flying at that speed, draw the charge.
Kerwin with the jump hook.
The zone has opened it up a little bit for him inside. He did not do very well in the congestion of bodies in the man-for-man.
McClinton will be called for fouling Hurley. That's McClinton's first. The announcers for this game selected and compensated by Raycom and Jefferson Pilot Sports, and the use of this broadcast without their express permission is prohibited. Bobby Hurley at the line, 77% free throw shooter. He's got 2 points, 2 assists. Just 1 for 6, though, from the field today. Chris Collins checks into the game for Thomas Hill, son of the former NBA star and Coach Doug Collins. Looks so much like his dad.
Got the shot, too. Gary Williams may have to think about that run 1-3-1 because Collins, being the spot-up shooter that he is, will surely find a crease. Collins is on schedule. The defense is probably, his ability to play defense at this level has probably kept him on the bench a little more than he liked, but he has a very fine future. He's a good one.
Bobby Hurley pushes the lead back to 8. 42 seconds remain in the first half.
Shot clock
trip for Maryland.
Yeah, shot clock is off, Tim. Let's see what they do with it. Anytime a young team has difficulty holding the ball this long, and Duke is smart enough to take some chances, knowing that Maryland probably won't take it to the basket if they gamble and lose.
Johnny Rhodes working against young Collins.
Couple of quality rookies matched up there.
No question. Rhodes gets doubled. Burns looks way outside of Simpkins.
Down to 10.
Simpkins has to go. On Hurley. Tough shot. Oh! And that's it. Gary Williams wants equal time. Still on the court. Gary down under one basket with one official. Now he's going back up to the scorer's table because Mike Krzyzewski's still there. Now they're both at the scorer's table.
Gary Williams claiming Mike Krzyzewski went out on the court, which he did. And, of course, Hurley really protested. We could start this second half with some technical fouls, but I'm not sure on who. Here's the play. Simpkins penetrating, knifes his way up and under. Clark takes the ball. I haven't seen anybody call for a timeout.
Nobody called timeout. They're still at the scorer's table. How about this? Gary Williams doesn't think Coach K should have been allowed on the floor at the end of that half.
Also Hurley. Hurley really did get in the official's face. But to end Tim, the last play, the Simpkins drive, really important to the young Terps. That left this crowd and the team on a high. And I don't think this is working in Maryland's best interest right here. It's a sideshow. What they should remember is that last bucket.
The filibuster has ended.
We'll see. We could shoot some free throws to start the second half, but it was heated. By the way, Krzyzewski and Williams really do like each other.
All right, so the first half comes to a very controversial and emotional end. And when we come back, Paul Cameron will have the halftime festivities live from Cole Fieldhouse.
Today's ACC action is brought to you by Nationwide Insurance, Ford, Gillette, Food Lion, and by Pepsi.
Live at halftime, an interesting finish, controversial finish to the first half. Hello, everybody. Paul Cameron back with you on our halftime show as Gary Williams and Mike Krzyzewski were having words with just about anybody who'd listened to close out the first half. Wonder what they're going to say to their teams in the locker room. So far, Maryland has been pretty much a one-man show. As we look at the point guard matchup we talked about in the first half, that's Kevin McClinton with 14 points and 4 assists. But McClinton has been a one-man show on one side. Duke has kind of cut it up several different ways. You see Hurley only with 5 points and 2 assists, but the things he's doing defensively have been leading to points for Thomas Hill. Hill in the off-guard position with 13 points, and Cherokee Parks, the big center, played very well with 10 points. So 2 guys in double digits for Duke at half. We're going to come back to Cole Fieldhouse at College Park. Our halftime show continues, and we will do so after these messages from Duke University and the University of Maryland.
From the preservation of our forests to the conservation of the plants and animals that inhabit them, environmental issues have a long history at Duke University. For decades, Duke students and researchers have worked in an outstanding academic climate to answer some of the world's most urgent problems, like the destruction of tropical plants used for medicine or adapting to the damage caused by ozone and acid rain. Finding answers for the future, Duke University. This message presented by the Atlantic Coast Conference.
41-35. Duke bought by as many as 9, but Maryland has stormed back behind the hand of Kevin McClinton. This week's nationwide scholar athlete is, as I've already told you, is Sabrina Salam. Now, stay tuned for the Nation Bank Player of the Game Award. Nations Bank will contribute $1,000 to the Atlantic Coast Conference to be distributed among the member institutions under a conference-approved plan. That's the Nations Bank Players of the Game to be awarded near the end of our broadcast. And we will continue with halftime from Cole Fieldhouse in College Park, Maryland. Duke in Maryland. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Cole Fieldhouse, where the Blue Devils of Duke lead the Maryland Terrapins by 6. We're at halftime. Interesting first half, and certainly it ended with a flare of emotion. Tim Brand along with Bucky Waters and Bucky at the end of that first half. I don't believe there were any technicals called. We'll find out as they begin the second half.
Well, the unfortunate thing for Maryland is Dwayne Simka set this crowd alive with his only field goal of the game, just weeding down through there. It did not appear that Duke reacted well. I didn't see anyone call timeout. Certainly Bobby Hurley was upset. That brought Mike on the floor. That brought Gary on the floor. And as you say, it was electric.
We'll talk more about this game, but while we have an opportunity here, let's take a look at the Budweiser scoreboard to find out what's happening in other games taking place today. And of course, it's brought to you by Budweiser. First half score, Auburn leading Vanderbilt 18-15.
Eddie Fogler's had the Commodores tough on the road, but SEC, like most leagues, tough to win there. Auburn's decent this year. Marquette up, boy, like the days of Al McGuire. Of course, that's very early. And Louisville, a team that has lost to this Maryland team, up by 4 on the road in the second half to Virginia Commonwealth.
Vanderbilt, of course, taking a lot of pride right now in their women's basketball. And we're at Cole Fieldhouse, have a pretty good ball game going here even as we speak. 41-35 is our score in Atlantic Coast Conference basketball on the Raycom and Jefferson Pilot Sports Network. Will continue after these messages from your local ACC stations. Duke leading by 6 in College Park, Maryland. Terrapins very young but hanging tough right now. And while we have a chance, let's take a Look at the U.S. Air halftime statistics here on the ACC Basketball Network. Maryland did not shoot that well, but if you come down to turnovers, Duke had 12. Maryland only 7, and that was a factor.
Indeed it was, and with that, Duke only had 10 assists, which is an inverse ratio that the running Blue Devils can ill afford. They depend on that transition game. Look at those blocks. The Blue Devils have been a force inside. Maryland not able to dominate inside. This was the key basket right here. Oh no, that's a block by Parks early in traffic. He was a force on the board. Not only did he lead Duke in scoring with 10 points, but he had 3 rejects in the first half that energized the Blue Devil break. Marty Clark now going down inside. We see Parks also, again, the leading scorer with 10, making a difficult shot in traffic, much different than his little turn hooks and his jumper. And of course, Kevin McClinton was everything for the Terrapins in the first half, but this play involves 3 other guys. Johnny Rhodes makes the steal to Dwayne Simpkins, over to a charging Evers Burns, who nails it. Burns only was 6 points below his average, and I think that's a key for Maryland. McClinton is playing well, but he's got to get his teammates more into the game.
All right, Bucky, I just had a conversation with Lenny Wirtz, the referee. We'll tell you what the hubbub was about when we come back. Back to Cole Fieldhouse. The Blue Devils of Duke lead Maryland by 6 points. We're at halftime and about to start the final 20. Tim Brand along with Bucky Waters with you back here, and just had a long talk with, well, it wasn't that long, with Lenny Wirtz. He came over, he said basically what it was, and it probably looked like more than it was, is the fact that Mike Krzyzewski wanted 4 seconds put back on the clock. He said that the whistle had blown. Lenny didn't hear it. The other officials didn't say they blew it. And it was just a time factor. He just wanted 4 seconds put back on. He said that's how much should have been on the clock. Now let's watch. Here's the final play. Here's the shot. There is the 4 seconds remaining. No timeout is called that I can see. No whistle blown according to the officials. Bobby Hurley, you see immediately going over to the officials saying, wait a minute, you blew a whistle. Should be more 4 seconds put back on that clock. There wasn't. And therein lies the hubbub.
Well, it was a storm that blew through. You talked to no, you listened to Lenny Wirtz. you didn't talk.
Lenny does a nice job. He was in control, said it was probably looking more like it really was.
Yeah.
You've got 2 of the quality coaches in all of basketball here today. Coach K and Gary Williams.
Well, Gary Williams on the threshold of rebuilding this Maryland program. He needs some talent, and he's got him coming. Joe Smith, the 6'9" player from Norfolk, Virginia, Murray High School, one of the top 25 players, and an incredibly improved center spot over the current Chris Kerwin coming into next year.
See the leading scorers as we begin the second half. Duke has possession first. Tony Lang to Bobby Hurley. Man-to-man defense, and Chris Kerwin picks up a personal in a hurry. That is 3 on Kerwin.
First few minutes, I think Maryland's fragile here.
I agree with that. Once again, you have to rebuild the confidence of the young guys. You know, Rhodes and Hip were just 2 for 8 in that first half.
They're going to be pillars of this franchise before they leave here.
Or they will. And we'll talk about how the recruiting is going for both teams here shortly. Way outside, fight for the rebound. Kerwin. And the possession arrow belongs to Maryland. Well, he doesn't look big and he doesn't look strong, but you're right. He does play beyond his talents.
He's big and he's not strong, but what a heart. But as we watch Maryland teams, after Gary Williams recruits the kind of athletes that he wants to run his stuff, we're going to look back on Kerwin and say, my goodness, how did they do it?
Right side, Parks. No whistle, all the way out to Thomas Hill, to Grant, to Thomas. Hurley, Hill, and Hill, like a law firm.
Three terrific perimeter players. How about going back to the in Maryland tradition? Mo Howard, Brad Davis, and John Lucas. A very similar trio on the perimeter.
Kerwin's shot comes back out. Blue Devils can feel like they can put it away. Hurley for 3, and Kerwin gets it back. Hill knocks it off X-Reed Hip. So far, the point guard matchup, Hurley just 5 points, McClinton with 14. And the late whistle on Kerwin, that's 4.
Maryland showing a 2-2-1 3-quarter zone press. I think caught the Blue Devils asleep a little bit, but they recovered on that call. This may be a catalyst right here, Tim. Kerwin going out forces Gary to go to the small club, and it's either going to be real good or real bad right here.
Rhodes tries to knock it away. Thomas Hill.
Clinton on Grant Hill now. Boy, that's an interesting matchup of neighborhood guys.
Parks loses it out of bounds as Duke continues to turn it over.
Hurley now gets a different look with Dwayne Simpkins in his face, a water bug.
14 turnovers for the Blue Devils this afternoon has allowed Maryland to stay in this thing.
Simpkins kind of reminds you of that left-handed dribble of Kenny Anderson. Of course, he's no way the player that Kenny Anderson is, but the physical resemblance is there.
Johnny Rhodes thought he was fouled. No call. Hurley pushes it quickly. Fires and hits it.
Under control. Under control. Came down the side. Just kind of glided into the free throw line. Looked around. Took the shot.
Largest lead of the game for Duke. They lead by 10.
They had it to 9 just once, momentarily late in the first half.
Evers Burns throws it away. Hurley. Parks. Yes. 12-point lead. You say Maryland's fragile? You're right. That graphic tells the story. 47-35 Duke, and we'll return after this from Schick.
Terrapins came out a bit tentative in the second half. 2 quick fouls on Kerwin, forced a smaller lineup. Cherokee Parks gets a hand on that one, and the Blue Devils are running. Evers Burns not only caused the turnover, he was just smart enough on that play to get out in front of the big chief, Cherokee Parks, who continues to dominate the inside.
Duke on a 6-0 run. You had it right, Bucky. They look tentative, and they throw it away again.
With the smaller team now, I think Gary Williams has got to take a chance to do something with his defense, with this small team, to go quickness, go pressure, try to get this crowd, try to get some transition baskets.
I think the young freshman now can feel a crack.
Boy, McClinton and Grant Hill, that's some physical battle down in there.
Here's Grant Hill by himself. Easy bucket. Got the feeling that this one's over. As a matter of fact, the crowd has even gotten quiet. Certainly Gary Williams doesn't feel that way, and the crowd, I mean, the players don't feel that way.
An awful lot of time.
But you can just see the confidence of Duke building, and Maryland a little bit fragile, as you said.
Obviously, it's not Carolina and North Carolina and Florida State, but anybody who wants to begin embalming early ought to just think back to last week and that incredible comeback by the Tar Heels. I mean, I saw medical science done in that 21,000 people with lockjaw got cured by 5 straight three-pointers.
Saw the game coming up next, North Carolina and Wake Forest. Following this one.
Former Maryland guard trying to kick, drag, whatever, bring his team back into this game. Down 14, just under 17 to go.
Look at how quiet it's gotten in here.
Yeah. Looks like a mural over there.
There's that 8-0 run. 16:40 to go. Thomas Hill fires and hits for 3 more. Hill twisted his ankle a little bit, comes up gimpy.
Either twisted or got stepped on. That free hit ran right through him.
Johnny Rhodes to Simpkins. Working on Hurley. Nice spin move. Tough shot. He's fouled. Simpkins has stepped up his game. And Thomas Hill continues to limp. They'll get him out quickly. So Marty Clark comes in to replace Thomas Hill.
Boy, it's been Hill and Parks as far as scoring goes for the Blue Devils today. That is not a good sign. He leads with 14 points, 6 boards, and 4 assists. He was critical.
And remember early on, he caught an elbow in the mouth. He was checking his teeth to make sure they were all still locked in. Dwayne Simpkins, 68% free throw shooter. Makes the first one. He averaged 15 points a game when he was at DeMatha. Led DeMatha to back-to-back titles, 87-10 record while he was there, playing for Morgan Wooten. 6-foot freshman from Fort Washington, Maryland. Makes a move. Terrapins almost had a steal. Now Duke breaks the press. Bobby Hurley fires for 3 more.
I think Maryland would like to press. They're going to have to do something to change his tempo. But you got to score to press. Any misses run down your throat.
Simpkins throws it away. Everything is just falling apart for the Terrapins.
Despite that basket right at the end of the half, Dwayne Simpkins is not a confident player.
Actually, he's played pretty well against Hurley at times today, but you're right. Inconsistency. Graham on the baseline. Nice pass over the line. Bucks with the rebound. What do they call Parks over the back?
Yeah, I believe so, but that's a foul Mike Krzyzewski can live with.
Well, that's 3.
Evers Burns, not a big factor today.
Somehow, Bucky, you have the feeling Maryland has to get a run going. As you look at the field goals this half over 3, just to get the crowd back in it, if for no other reason. Here's Rhodes. Nope. Hurley.
The experience of Duke right here, just kind of taking their time and working the ball.
Game changed dramatically, hasn't it, the last couple of minutes. Here comes McClinton. Maryland's got a 3-on-1. McClinton wants it himself. No, he's fouled.
Gary Williams is furious with X-ray hip. He's trying to whip his team into just moving, running. The Maryland team right now is mesmerized. They've been blitzed. They're down 16. And again, I think we'll see some half-court traps, some full-court pressure, perhaps here out of the free throw. Something to change this half-court situation where the Terrapins are just getting pounded.
Lang goes out of the game. Blakeney checks in. Johnny Rose at the line for Maryland. And he converts the 3-point play. Maryland goes back to its press. Blakeney to Hurley to Parks. Burns. Burns gets the rebound. Good defense by Evers Burns.
Parks hurt his hand trying to get on that offensive board.
Rhodes. Air ball. There's McClinton. He's hurt. Thrown down by Blakeney. Gary Williams wants the intentional foul.
McClinton, a force today, not an intentional foul. Kenny Blakeney going for the ball. If you're even close to going for the ball, here's another look at it. It's an air ball. McClinton, who is ubiquitous today, again with the board, tries to power back up and in, knowing he's going to get hit, but he did not anticipate the severity of that shot.
Stan Levine, the team doctor, working on him, obviously in pain. 14 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He is a tough player.
Well, when your point guard is also your leading scorer, as is the case with Maryland and Virginia, you tend to be up and down, Tim. Today is a good example. He had a terrific half, but the real key for Maryland to win today is to bring the rest of his teammates, especially those freshmen, Hip and Rhodes, into play, which he hasn't been able to do. Boy, he's a tough kid.
Working on Cherokee Parks. Looks like he's got some problems with that third finger.
He tried to come in over the back and get that offensive board after he missed the shot, and he was visibly in pain.
Walsh replaces McClinton, and he will go to the line. Shooting these 4, Kevin McClinton, and comes cold off the bench and makes the first one.
He was put in a situation like this as a freshman down at Florida State and just performed almost a miracle. 10 points, 6 boards in 28 minutes. And it was a game that Gary Williams will long remember, because despite the great year Florida State had last year, the Terrapins won down there. You know, John Walsh was a big factor.
As a coach, Bucky, this has to be a type of game that'll drive a coach crazy. Yeah, Thomas Hill hurts his ankle. Parks hurts his hand. It's a game you know you should win. Walsh takes it right down the middle. This is the layup. Early answers. Meek with the follow.
How's that for a bench that's developing? Eric Meek in for Parks, already a presence. The Duke big guys are running the floor. They're getting better.
57-41. Johnny Rhodes. He walks. So McClinton does come back into the ball game, and so does Thomas Hill.
The Blue Cross Blue Shield team back in the game. They did go out. It was of some concern.
Here's McClinton with Hurley. 13:51 remaining in the ball game. Inside the Meeks, easy bucket. Stepped on the line.
No help from the weak side in the Maryland defense. Gary Williams' team trying to front the post to cut off that inside game, especially without Kerwin in there. They're vulnerable, but they're not getting the weak side help, which you have to have when you're fronting.
Bucky called that foul on Meek before the line. It's 41 for Maryland, and here's McClinton trying to get something going for the Terrapins. Seems like everything has just gotten out of sync.
Maryland shouldn't be afraid to take a few passes to get the defense moving. Again, they're just trying to put the ball on the floor and make a big play. Well, that's hard to do against the Duke defense. I mean, there's 13 and a half minutes, and it's a 16-point game, but it's still a lot of time. They don't need to panic.
Evers can take him if he wants to. Walsh. X3 hit.
The strategy of Evers-Burns on the outside with a center has not looked good. A little early success against Parks, but since then it's really not worked. He needs to get back in there and help on the board.
Hit now 1 for 3. Senior leadership is great, but the freshmen have to take it to another level now. Turnover, offensive. That is 3 on Hill. Watch the hook.
Good pass down inside. Oh, wrap around mine, baby. X3 hip for maybe a freshman knows a wraparound when he sees one. ACC level or not.
That's 16 turnovers. Here's McClinton. Too hard. Nobody there for the rebound. Hurley. Duke loses it out of bounds. 17 turnovers for the Blue Devils.
Very uncharacteristic, and it's not against a defense that's putting that much pressure on them. Many of these now are what I would call unforced turnovers. Again, Hurley in the lane, airborne. He didn't get called for the charge, but it was close.
Inside the Burns. Loses it. Now the foul. Called against Clark.
Now into the bonus, Tim. So unlike the first half where Duke was a runaway in the foul situation, Maryland only shooting 2 free throws. At least that part of the game is working better for Maryland in the second half.
Changed it now, and they put it on Grant Hill. That is his 4th. So Grant Hill goes out of the ball game. Lang comes back in. On the floor right now, Duke has Clark, Hurley, Parks, Hill, and Tony Lang. This is Evers-Burns.
Burns has got to step up if Maryland's going to win today. He has not been much of a factor. The sweat pouring off of Gary Williams. 68 grad here. He coaches like he plays, like a bulldog.
I think you're right. Burns really does have to get something going. He only has 6 points, 4 rebounds for the afternoon. 57-43 Duke. 12 and a half minutes to go. His ball was loose. Hurley came up with it.
Boy, he gets those. He just gets those.
He is so tough.
Yeah, if they could have picked that one up, stuck it back in, drawn a foul, he would have put the electricity back in his crowd. Goodness knows they want to participate.
Lang on Walsh goes right around him.
Evers-Burns watched the whole play. The weak side defense really letting the Terrapins down. Pressure on the ball is pretty good.
Johnny Rhodes. Hip. Those two guys have to become a factor as this. Finally, Burns gets 2 points.
Boy, that quick wheel into the middle. Very difficult to defend. It's a double wide at high speed.
Clinton thought he had the steal. And they throw it away again. And you believe this, 18 turnovers for the Blue Devils. And with 11:21, Maryland still hanging around, 59-45. We'll be back after a word from our good friends at Budweiser.
Rhodes and Hip 4 for 14. This guy's got to step up. Evers Burns makes a strong move on Marty Clark. Cherokee Park's just a little tentative now with his foul problems. Gets there just a little late. Only 8 points, 4 boards. More importantly, Evers Burns only has 8 shots. 4 for 8, and that's critical.
But Clinton forces the shot. Walsh with the follow. Blocked down. Burns, yes. Walsh was fouled. Bucket won't count. Walsh will go to the line.
The crowd loves this guy, John Walsh. I guess, again, going back to that incredible role from the bench he played against Florida State last year.
Foul called on Parks. That is his 4th. So Grant Hill has 4. Cherokee Parks has 4.
And again, that speaks, Tim, to Maryland creating that inside game. Going down inside. That's the 8th foul on Duke. And putting pressure down inside. Going to the foul line, which will stop the clock. Maryland's very much in this game.
Trying to pull it back to 12.
Kerwin with 4 on the bench. Good press by Maryland. But boy, is it hard to press number 11.
His shot rebounded by McClinton. Inside to Burns. Rhodes, yes! 10-point lead.
And over 10 to go.
6-0 Maryland run. Walsh will be called for the foul here.
It's not a shooting foul, shouldn't be. You know, with the 3-point shot, 2 things you shouldn't start early: embalming and a victory celebration, as we saw Wednesday night in Chapel Hill. John Walsh, fearless. The big chief, Cherokee, wanted to rip that loose and go for the rim. John wouldn't let go.
Lang and Walsh battling for position. This call on John Walsh again.
McClinton's very tired, Tim. He's not putting much pressure on the ball. And if you give Hurley a chance to look over your defense, which is what he's doing right now, he'll hurt you down inside.
Johnny Rhodes with the steal. Here's Hip and Rhodes. It's Rhodes. 59-51.
The enthusiasm of youth.
But you know what? It's got Gary Williams off the bench applauding him. And it's got these folks in it. Nothing Maryland run. Hurley trying to stop that. For 3. He is a stopper, isn't he? He's special.
He's the most dominating player in college basketball. Exclamation point.
McClinton's shot. No. Here comes Hurley again.
Duke has to be very careful here not to get too cautious. Parks has 4, but Duke looks a little tired. It is warm in here today. But here's where experience pays off now. They're taking a pretty good shot from Maryland. But Maryland is young and prone to make mistakes.
Shot clock at 15. Down to 10, and Hurley will go to work. Nice pass. Oh, he lost the handle. Tony Lang had a layup and he lost the ball.
Superb penetration by Hurley that time. Put it on a platter. They should be taking the ball at Parks. Burns should be posting up with Parks, and he should be going to the basket. Cherokee Parks has been a nemesis all day, and he's worth at least 1 or 2 offensive possessions to try to get that 5th one on him.
He has 4 fouls. You'd think they'd go after him. Now Parks goes out, Meeks comes in. Clark goes out of the game as well. Blakeney back in. This is called a McClinton pushing off. That's only 2.
But he's tired. He's chased Hurley. He's guarded Grant Hill, and he has been the Maryland offense. He'll sleep good tonight.
Kerwin will check back into the game. Walsh goes out. Walsh did a nice job while he was in there.
He'll be back. I'm telling you, he'll be back.
8 minutes and 42 seconds left.
Gary Williams sending Dwayne Simpkins back in the game. Waiting to come in at the scorer's table. They need the quickness on the floor.
Shot clock at 15.
If nothing else, to chase Hurley and save McClinton offensively.
Pushing the 8-minute mark. Shot clock now at 7, so here goes Hurley. Hill loses it. Blakeney gets it back. He fires. And Hipp gets the rebound. Well, they ran some time off, but it wasn't a great offensive series for Duke.
11 points, 7:45. There's a mismatch. Setting that high screen, Duke is switching. Kerwin's down in there with Hurley, but nobody caught him.
Kevin McClinton. This lead is 9. Hurley. Rebound Maryland.
Hurley must be tired. That was not a good-looking shot there.
And Meek fouls Evers Burns.
This guy's Evers Burns is an emotional leader, if not a statistical leader for this Maryland team. And it's not like he can't do it against Duke. I remember in that play-in game last year, he played well. And then against Duke in the semifinals of the Atlantic Coast Conference Tournament, Evers Burns went for 25 points, 10 rebounds. And the other thing I remember, he wouldn't sit down. And he drove the Duke student body nuts, who give him that long goodbye.
Coach K makes some changes here. Strategy continues. Clark back in the ball game. Grant Hill back in the ball game. Cherokee Parks back in the game. Purdue. Burns at the line, shooting 1 and 1. Parks with the rebound. That was big.
Huge. Huge.
He has struggled all day.
Boy, that crowd is just like the air out of a balloon. And this is a mismatch here, too. Evers Burns will have great difficulty with Grant Hill on the perimeter. The Duke experience now, running time off the clock. Those 2 free throws, not only did they miss the points, they missed the chance to set up the press, which had been good to them.
Hurley wants the ball back. Tells Grant that. Shot clock now at 12. Grant says, I want this thing. I've got a mismatch. Takes it and misses.
9 points, 6.5 minutes. It's doable, Tim. There's the matchup right there. Parks with 4 and Evers Burns. You took him early. Evers, take him now.
Evers doesn't seem like much to take.
No. He's not looking. He's just not aware of the situation. Cherokee's not going to play him tough.
Crowd getting antsy, saying, come on, Evers, do something with it. Now Gary says, go ahead, set the offense.
I don't know why Maryland's running time off the clock.
Wayne Simpkins had it in and came back out.
Maryland's got to go down inside. They got Hill, Grant Hill with 4, Parks with 4, but more importantly, they go down inside. Even if they don't get the 5th one, they'll get fouled and stop that clock.
Grant Hill, and he scores. So Duke back on top now by 11. 5:34 remaining.
Duke in his zone. The 2-3 matchup.
Offensive.
Very smart play that time by Marty Clark. Positioned himself on the baseline so there was no way to come back, forcing him into Cherokee Park.
Frustration of that guy. He's 4 for 9 from the field, 0 for 2 from the line, and Maryland trails by 11. We'll return after this word from Pepsi. Duke 64, Maryland 53. You see the time remaining. Maryland still hanging around. The Pepsi game summary shows you that Maryland shooting just 40%. But Parks has been quite a story. 14 points, 6 rebounds, 3 blocks for Duke. That has been a major factor.
Yeah, the offense has not come from the perimeter today, as it usually does for Duke. Parks continues to impress, stepping up, taking over the offensive responsibility. He does have 4 fouls, but now at 5 minutes, he will play aggressively. Hurley trying to go over the top. Maryland's got to make the move, and they got to do it now.
Johnny Rhodes had a shot.
Duke man for man. Showed the 2-3 match just one time.
McClinton. Oh, what a tough shot that was. Keep in mind, Grant Hill came into this game with a bad foot. They had an x-rayed last night. The x-rays were negative. He comes up a little bit gimpy after this foul by Hip. And that is 4 now on the freshman x-ray Hip.
I'm sure the Blue Devils want him right for Wednesday night when the Tar Heels invade Cameron. Looking back to that game last year, Hubert Davis had 35 in Cameron.
Grant Hill, 72% free throw shooter. Smooth, isn't he? Great follow through, great rotation. A lot of foul trouble now. Parks and Grant Hill both have 4 for Duke. Kerwin and Hip have 4 each for Maryland. Grant Hill pushes the lead back to 11. Maryland's got to start thinking about the clock now.
Duke now challenging the outside shot. They don't want an inside game by Maryland, which stops the clock because it goes to the free throw line. They can live with some outside shooting, which is not one of Maryland's strengths. There's one.
Locked out of bounds by Parks.
You know, he looks and reminds you of an Adrian Dantley. That goes back a ways, but the kind of a guy that could just take the ball to the basket, go to the foul line. He's just not a point guard.
Wayne Simpkins can't get the ball in. 5-second call.
Nice move inside. There's McClinton. And again, there's Parks.
Hurley breaks the press. Now he'll melt a little of the clock. Shot clock at 25. Simpkins working against Hurley. Shot clock at 10. Here goes Hurley to work. Grant Hill. Yes.
Well, the two franchise players really take over at the end of the game. It's a two-man game at the top of the key after milking the clock.
Now at the Maryland end, Maryland continues to waste time. This time they don't. Rhodes fired in a hurry.
Well, Dwayne Simpkins is trying to play the point. They're trying to use McClinton now as a scorer. It's interesting how the reverse happened. They took McClinton from point to two guard and back to the point guard and moved Walt the Wizard Williams last year to the 2 spot. It paid off. He had 7 straight 30-point games and groomed McClinton for this point guard role, but they really do need his scoring.
Grant Hill has scored the last 6 points for Duke.
This is experience and control and having a manager with the ball like Hurley.
His foul is called on Simpkins. 3 minutes remain in the ball game.
Maryland had its chances today.
Sure did.
But as you look at the Duke team on the floor right now and where they've been and what they've done, and Hurley with the ball, it's really going to be difficult.
3 minutes remain, 68-55, Blue Devils. Hurley makes the first one. In the first half, he had 5 points, 2 assists. In the second half, Hurley woke up. He has 9 points and 4 assists, and he has complete control of this game right now. Pushes the Duke lead to 70-55. We'll return after this word from our good friends at Budweiser. Delivery of the game, Bucky.
There'll be comparisons to Bobby Hurley in his statistical matchup with McClinton, who scored well. But here's the man himself, under control, and the big train. A nice pass right on the numbers. Cherokee Parks, who's been a defensive force all season long, is the big scorer today. The man with the goggles, the chief, they call him.
The lead is 15. 3 minutes to go. Maryland needs a run.
6 assists for Bobby Hurley. That was one of the easier ones.
Terps have only 20 points this half. Here's Evers Burns. Forces the shot, doesn't get the roll.
If Maryland's going to shoot jump shots now, they got to be threes. Anything but a power move to the basket to get fouled or a three-point shot now is not smart play by Maryland.
I've been surprised by the tempo Maryland has chosen this half.
Well, I'm not sure they're really able to dictate.
Turnover Duke.
They've shot poorly, and it's hard to get into your presses when Duke is taking that defensive board and run with it.
Simpkins pushes it up quickly. 2.5 minutes to go in the game. Here's Evers Burns again. He's forcing it badly.
Well, he just can't do anything right, and that's unfortunate for the Terrapins.
Maryland shooting 39%. It looks as if they try to go too much to the seniors. Burns and McClinton maybe asked too much at them, rather than maybe the freshmen stepping up a little bit more and taking a bigger role.
Hit the roads are especially effective when the Terps are able to get into transition. And that hadn't happened too often today.
1:40 to go in the game. Dwayne Simpkins called here for the foul. This one's in the books.
Yeah, you're right this time.
Stay tuned for the Players of the Game Award, brought to you by Nations Bank.
And actually, Tim, you were right the first time.
Thank you very much.
You were right.
Interesting game, though. Maryland certainly played well enough to keep themselves in this game.
And Duke really couldn't put them away there for the longest while. Excessive turnovers, really unforced errors. But I thought Duke was improved today in its rebounding. A big concern for the Blue Devils, again, coming off that San Francisco game where they gave up 18 offensive boards. Maryland's a much better rebounding team than San Francisco, and they really did attend to that problem.
Hurley putting a little exclamation point on it. Here's Dwayne Simpkins. Great look inside to Burns. Simpkins does show flashes, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got the quicks. He just doesn't have the confidence. As you pointed out earlier, wisely, last year he sat home watching Bobby Hurley on national television. Today he's trying to guard him.
1:20 left in the game. Maryland still chasing. Foul on McClinton. That's 3 on Kevin McClinton.
As a tired young man. He's guarded all the tough ones for Duke. Everybody but Parks. He's guarded both Hills and Hurley on the perimeter. He's been point guard, 2 guard.
See the numbers on Marty Clark for today. 6'6", 205-pound junior from Western Springs, Illinois.
Boy, did he hit some big free throws in the Final Four last year. And he stepped forward in all phases of play. Duke is developing its bench. Mike Krzyzewski knows that if you're going to have a bench, there's only one way to do that. You got to play him. Meek is improving. Clark really has stepped up. He would have started today had Grant Hill not been able to go.
McClinton fires for 3. Can't get it to go. Johnny Rhodes gets it back. Next 3 Hip will fire for 3. You can't hit him, you can't win. Under a minute to go. Here's Hurley. Clark. Easy. They are tough. That pushes it to 76-57.
Clark lost 2 one-pointers on the road in the ACC. And strangely, people are saying, what's wrong with Duke? You lose at Georgia Tech by 1, you lose at Florida State by 1. I don't think anything's wrong with them. This is a tough league, and this is a good team.
Here's the foul by X-Ray Hip as they start to really pour out of Cole Fieldhouse now. Eric Meek will come into the game, as Chris Collins does as well. Don't forget, coming up following this one, North Carolina taking on the Demon Deacons of Wake Forest. Rodney Rogers looking for a big game against the Tar Heels, who have been so tough in that big come-from-behind win. 20 points down, 9.5 minutes to go against Florida State.
Yeah, the
Tar Heels won it.
They better not be looking ahead to Wednesday night. Dave Odom hasn't beaten the Heels since he's been down there, and not this year, but 2 years previous, the Deacons beat the Blue Devils in Winston-Salem. They did not do that this year, but this is a much improved Wake Forest team. And I think the Heels better concentrate on this afternoon.
Blakeney makes it a 21-point lead. 25 seconds to go. Johnny Rhodes for 3. Rhodes, Hip, and Simpkins have been interesting. Maryland has had a pretty good recruiting year thus far this season already. Verbal commitments from Joe Smith, Nick Bosnick, both have agreed to come to Maryland. And Pete Booth seems to be the key for a lot of folks. He's narrowed his down to Duke, Kentucky, and Maryland. So, star from Dunbar and Baltimore, he's making his decision soon. That's the end of the game. Duke wins it 78-62.
You guys play great.
Class, quality, there they are. You don't get much better. One of the truly great coaches in college basketball history, Coach K. 4-time National Coach of the Year. We'll talk to some of the participants right after this game, so come back. Here at Cole Fieldhouse in College Park, Maryland. Bobby Hurley, 17 points, 7 assists this afternoon. Grant Hill, 15 points. And 9 rebounds. Cherokee Parks had 14 points, 8 rebounds, 4 blocks. He comes up big. He's one of our players of the game. And Thomas Hill, 14 points and 7 rebounds. Maryland was led by Kevin McClinton. He had 18 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and none of them were easy. I can guarantee you that. Interesting game. Coach K was at his best. And right now he's with Bucky Waters. Let's take you over to Bucky.
Thank you, Tim. Well, today was one of those typical ACC games on the road. You've had a couple of tough losses by 1, but I thought midway through the second half, you really stepped up the defense and pulled away.
Yeah, I thought our defense was really the key in the second half, Bucky. It was hard to score against us, and Maryland played real well, and the crowd was great. Their kids were positive the whole game, and boy, if they play like that the whole time, they're going to cause a lot of people trouble, especially here.
Cherokee Parks A huge first half.
Yeah, I thought Cherokee was really probably the key to the whole ball game because they don't have anybody like him, and we used him. We probably could have used him a little bit more, but we're still not there. We're not comfortable yet doing all those things naturally, but his rebounding was excellent and shot blocking.
Well, one of your concerns with the team, we talked about San Francisco, 18 offensive boards. It's been a real focus in practice. Today was much improved.
Yeah, today our rebounding was better, and the other thing, our bench gave us a lift. I thought Kenny Blakeney in the first half really gave us a big boost. Eric Meek made a couple that follow-up in the second half was a big play as a hustle play when we missed our first shot on the break, and Marty continues to do a good job. You know, Grant, we weren't sure if Grant was going to play today, and I thought he did well, but his foot's not right at the present time, and we got to go back to Duke and see what the problem is.
Kevin McClinton, just
Terrific.
A tremendous effort. He guarded everybody, scored points. Who have you seen as opponents over the years that you would compare with him?
Well, he seems to play real well against us. Not that he doesn't play well against anyone else, but I think, you know, Bobby brings out the challenge part with a lot of point guards. And so he's the measuring stick. And when you're the measuring stick, you know, people circle the calendar and say, this is when I play against Bobby, this is when I play against Duke, and Kevin did that. Kevin was outstanding today. Not good, he was outstanding, and we went zone a few times just because we couldn't stop his real tough penetration.
Evers Burns, you just did a remarkable defensive job on him because they could have come back had he been able to get off.
Again, I think that goes back to Cherokee. You know, he's not Evers is not accustomed to shooting over a big guy. We made a little bit of an adjustment in the second half to play off of him on the perimeter so that Cherokee wouldn't use all of his strength and fouls. We were in a lot of foul trouble this afternoon, Buck.
All right, I got to ask you this question. You're going to say, you're a coach. What are you asking me this question for? Wednesday night, the Heels. Forget this one. You know how quick they come in the ACC. Hubert Davis, 35 in Cameron last year. He's not there. What are you looking for?
Well, Carolina's better than they were last year. I think Carolina's probably the best team in the country right now, and they may end up being the best team in the country. What they have is a balance of outstanding talent and experience. You know, talent's nice, but when you add the experience factor, then you become a great team. And of course, Dean is as good as there's ever been in the game of basketball, and that whole combination makes it a very difficult task for us, but we're looking forward to it.
That's the same pregame talk that Dave Odom gave his team today. Let's see if the Heels can get out of Winston. We'll look forward to seeing him in Durham. Tim, back to you.
All right, Bucky, thank you very much. Always a class act is Mike Krzyzewski. And again, our players of the game, Nations Bank players of the game. Cherokee Parks, what a big day he did have. 14 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 blocks. And for Maryland, Kevin McClinton, you heard Coach K say they had a difficult time stopping him. They did. 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. And right now on the other end of the court, Paul Cameron has the player of the game for Duke, Cherokee Parks.
Okay, thanks, Tim. This guy, the Chief, made it happy hunting grounds here today. 10 points in the first half. You guys had a 4-point lead at the break, but you come out of the dressing room and smoke them 11-0. Why?
Coach just talked to us at halftime, and he told us we got to come out strong early in the first. Those are the important minutes right there. Try to get them for the first time out, and everybody just played really well. Things were just going on well.
Let's talk about what Coach K mentioned in the first half. You were out on Evers Burns. He was looking to try to take you to the hole. It didn't work all that much. And then in the second half, you made the adjustment to play back off him. Of course, the foul trouble at that point.
That just goes back to Coach K being a great coach. He picked up on that in the first half, and like you said, I was back in the paint trying to stay off him, and we just had to wait for them to adjust, and we got some foul trouble late, but we were able to adjust to that too.
Of course, offensively, the folks at home just saw you with the big throw down there after you got your man out in front of you, and they were able to lob it into. Your height really paid off today.
Yeah, and that's been good for us last couple games. Our perimeter's been doing a good job of reading the defense, and they've been looking to get it down low, and me and Antonio Lang are looking to work a lot more post exchange inside, and like I said, our perimeter is just doing a good job of trying to get inside.
Of course, you did have some height to contend with, and that is Chris Kerwin. And Kerwin's a big, tall, thin guy. But, down the crunch, I really thought the important thing for Duke today was Grant Hill and Bobby Hurley, the way he ran the club. But here you go up inside. That's Kerwin right there on that replay. But down the stretch in the final 10 minutes, it was Hurley and it was Hill who really accounted for most of the points.
Yeah, they really did a good job. We went into a 2-3, and we were just trying to make smart decisions. And Bobby did a good job handling the ball, and Grant did did a great job of reading the defense, so that they really kept us in the game when Maryland went on that run late in the second half.
Big all-around game, Cherokee. Congratulations. Big win today on the road and a tough one upcoming. All right, let's go back courtside to Timmy.
Interesting player, but he was big today. And they've got a big week coming up, as he mentioned. And I think a lot of folks came up big today for them. Duke had Hurley with 17, Hill with 15, Parks with 14, and Thomas Hill also with 14. So Duke wins at 78-62. Let's go back to Paul Cameron now, who's with Grant Hill.
Okay, Tim, thanks so much. Grant's standing here, and I just asked him a second ago, how's the ankle? And he kind of winced at me. How is that ankle? I know you came in, you had it x-rayed yesterday, and it was not broken, but I really didn't see you favoring it one way or the other today.
Well, it was a little sore. I was a little disappointed that...
I'm going to adjust you right here on live television. Okay, sorry about that.
I was a little sore, but I just tried to keep my head in there. And my dad told me that before the game was to think about other things besides your foot. And I try not to show any, try not to limp or anything, and just try to keep focused on the game and not my ankle. And I think we did a good job. Our players played well, and Maryland's a tough team at home.
Well, you came out of the dressing room in the second half and went on that 11-0 run, and Parks was a big reason for that. But down the stretch, as I mentioned, Chief, just a second ago, it was Grant Hill and Bobby Hurley really in crunch time stepping up.
Well, I don't know about all of that. I think Cherokee played well. I think all of us played well. It was a team effort, and really what we try to do is we were up against Maryland by about 15, and kind of like Florida State last week, and we let Florida State back in the game, and we made sure we didn't lead or get Maryland back in the game. So we just focused hard and played good defense, came up with big rebounds, and made our free throws.
Yeah, Maryland got back within 8 is as close as they got, and then there was a 10-minute period where you and Hurley accounted for all the points in that stretch. Really, believe it or not, you did. In fact, you accounted for 13 of the 17 points over the final 10 minutes of play.
Well, I mean, Bobby's a great point guard, and I think he's the best in the country. He's fun to play with. He makes everybody else, their job easier. And myself, there were just openings I had, and stuff I wasn't really taking advantage of early on in the game. But I just felt comfortable at the end, and I took some big shots, and Bobby took some big shots, and fortunately they went in.
All right, let me ask you about Carolina on Wednesday night. Now it's time you can finally put your thoughts there.
It should be exciting. Carolina's playing real well. They probably will be the #1 team at the start of the week. And anytime Duke plays Carolina, no matter where it is, it's a real intense game, and it's just a fun game. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure they are too, and it should be an exciting game.
Grant, congratulations on a needed road win today. Restore a little confidence, and we hope you rest up those ankles and all those Blue Devils. Thomas Hill turned his ankle as well today, so it'll be interesting to see what the Devils do in the next few days. Tim, let's go back over courtside.
All right, Paul, thank you very much, and he's an interesting young guy as well. Quite a talent. Once again, our final score, Duke 78, Maryland 62. We'll have more post-game for you right after this.
Today's ACC action has been brought to you by Budweiser, Nations Bank, Buick, U.S. Air, Pepsi, and by the Jefferson Pilot Life Insurance Company.
Welcome back to Cole Fieldhouse, everybody. You know, there's a time in your life when you have a famous dad that you call you Calvin Hill's son, but now that's all changed, and now it's Grant Hill's dad. Let's take you now to Paul.
All right, Tim, and he's certainly getting a lot of FaceTime on television networks all around the country. Welcome, Calvin Hill, a great running back with the Dallas Cowboys. On the Super Bowl weekend, a guy who played in the Super Bowl, and you saw your son out there come up with a pretty super effort on some gimpy little ankle. He told me he really wasn't all that hurt. He's got a sprain, but it was kind of tender. You told him to take it easy today, huh?
Well, no, I told him, in football, he'd play a couple games on an ankle like that.
Yeah, tell him to be tough. Huh?
But I was very proud of him. The fact that he showed some toughness, because I didn't know, as of yesterday, whether he'd play or not.
Down the stretch, he was awfully tough. He and Hurley certainly running the show, but Grant picked up a bunch of points there in the final 10 minutes, looking like the Greyhound he is.
Well, I think, certainly he knew what the situation, was, but I think it's, a tribute to the coaching staff, because Grant and Bobby and Thomas and Tony and Cherokee just came up real strong. And then you look at the bench, and guys know what their roles are and what they have to do to win. And I'm 1 for 1 so far this weekend, and hopefully the other blue team will.
I wondered if we were going to get around to that. The Super Bowl prediction. You like the young Cowboys?
Well, emotionally, I'm a big Cowboy fan,
Sure.
and but looking at it logically, I also like them. In fact, I get scared because I like them, so much. I think they are a young team that plays with. They are a team that plays with the poise of an experienced team, and if you can get poise and youthful exuberance and skill together, which I think they have that right combination. There's no telling what they can do. And that's not to minimize Buffalo, because Buffalo is a fine, fine team. They are a great offensive team and a great defensive team. But I just think it's the Cowboys' year.
Hey, you're an NFC guy all the way, right?
I am. And I think, if you look at the route they took to get there, they beat Philadelphia, they beat San Francisco. In this division, of course, are the Redskins. So, you're talking about 4 teams that possibly could be at the Super Bowl, and the Cowboys beat those teams convincingly this year.
But you talk about pressure for Buffalo, a team that has come in twice and gone 0 for 2. Boy, that 0 for 3 would be just heartbreaking, wouldn't it, for them?
Well, it would. Anytime you lose the Super Bowl, and I also lost the Super Bowl, it's the world's worst thing. That feeling of that you leave and, you can't play a game next week to get rid of it. So it lingers with you. But a lot of people talked about the Minnesota teams, and they talked about the Denver teams and the fact that they were losers. And, what I always say is that, there are a lot of teams, if they can't win the big one, then there are a lot of teams that can't win the little ones to get there. And you can't take anything away from any team that gets to this game, because you have 26 other teams that would gladly trade places with Buffalo and Dallas. And, it's unfortunate that only one team wins, but that's just the way the cake crumbles.
I know a guy you like, and that's Emmitt Smith out of the University of Florida. Fine little running back.
He is an exceptional running back. He's mesmerizing, some of the things he's able to do. But I'm also a huge, huge fan of Mike Irvin. Mike Irvin, plays with the gusto of somebody like Magic Johnson in basketball. He enjoys playing. And, my hat's really off to Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson for what they've been able to accomplish. And, I tell people now I can, wear my Cowboy paraphernalia, my rings, etc., and people think of a good team. They were starting to resemble the New England Patriots, over the last couple of years. And that's not a good feeling when you have some sweat equity in that team.
Let me just real quickly say, and go back to today's game, of course, we saw a fine effort from Kevin McClinton for the University of Maryland. His dad, Harold, played in the NFL with the Washington Redskins. Any thoughts there? Of course, tragic death, obviously.
Well, very tragic. In fact, I played 2 years for the Redskins, and Harold was one of my best friends. I saw his wife, Agnes, here today, and it's really a tribute to Agnes, how she's been able to raise 2 boys. Her other son is playing currently for JMU, and she's on her way over to George Mason to watch him play. But Harold was just an exceptional guy who tragically was killed, while he was trying to act as a good Samaritan. But just, a great teammate. And when I played against him, he was the kind of guy that you enjoyed playing against and certainly playing with. He was a very close friend of mine. And, when I see Kevin, I realize that Harold's happy because, Kevin's turned out to be just the same kind of competitor, but also, the same kind of gentleman that Harold is.
All right, well, that is certainly from the heart, ladies and gentlemen. Calvin Hill, we thank you for stopping by today. Best of luck. I know you'll be behind that Duke bench all the way as far as they can go. Carolina and Duke, got a prediction Wednesday night?
Well, never say what you need not unless you have to prove what you cannot. But, the blood in my veins is blue and Duke blue. And so, I'm thinking that Duke has a very good chance to win that game. It's going to be a great game, though.
Always at home. That is going to be a good one. Cal, once again, thanks so much for stopping by. And we will go back over and continue our post-game show. Here's Tim Brandt once again.
One of my favorite people, Calvin Hill, vice president of the Orioles, didn't ask him anything about how Baltimore was going to do. Talked about football and basketball and everything but baseball.
Super Bowl weekend, what else? But what's really interesting, Grant has told me this story that he and his dad had visited Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina, and as far as Calvin was concerned, that's where they were going. And Grant said, no, we promised Duke we'd stop. We said we were going to visit, and then that's what we're going to do. We made a commitment. Calvin said, okay, but he called Janet Hill, his wife, and said, well, now we're going to stop here. But, boy, Carolina's really it. And they stopped at Duke, and the rest, as they say, is history. So he was pretty cavalier about that. What shade of blue is in his veins? But there was a time when he thought it was going to be much lighter.
Well, I tell you what, this one right here was rather cavalier as well. Duke came in and made it big, 78-62. Once again, our final score, equal time for the Buffalo Bills there. We'll be back with more post-game right after this. Stay with us. Park today, Maryland came out very fired up. The young kids were believing early. They gave them a pretty good ball game. At the half, it was 41-35, just a 6-point difference. And then in the second half, you could feel the game starting to get away from the Terrapins. Duke picked up, played like the champions that they are. Bobby Hurley and Grant Hill just took over. Take a look at some of the statistics from today's game. I think they're rather significant in that Duke shot 55% from the floor and Maryland just 40%. Although uncharacteristically, Duke had 21 turnovers.
And that's exacerbated by the fact that they only had 16 assists, and very seldom do you see a skilled perimeter team with an inverse ratio there. Cherokee Parks, of course, came up big with half of those blocks. Sensational performance on the board, and the thing that's been concerning Mike Krzyzewski, rebounding, and for obvious reasons, and that is if the Devils aren't running, they're just an okay team, and when they're running, they're scary. They're so good.
No question about that. Right now, let's take you back to Paul Cameron on the other side of the court. He'll update you on some scores.
Thanks, Tim. A couple of games across this nation this afternoon that we've got some finals for you. First of all, UC over DePaul 80-54. That's a final. It's Vandy and Auburn, and that's a final. An upset. Vanderbilt loses 52-49. Also in the second half, Marquette leading the Billikens 59-53. Georgetown trailing Boston College at halftime, the Big East. And it's early. Tulane trailing Southern Miss in the Metro. Louisville, a winner by a bucket over VCU in overtime. Close game there. Temple falls to K-State. Actually, that's still going on, in progress, 79-63. And Nebraska leading Missouri 54-43 in the second half. And we'll be right back with more of our post-game show as you see the final scores roll on your screen. Back after this from our good friends at Budweiser.
Has a few good things to talk about, but he doesn't have long to talk about them. Virginia comes in here next, and that's not easy. That's one of the challenges of coaching in the Atlantic Coast Conference. It's like a waterfall. They never stop coming. For Mike Krzyzewski, it's the heels and Cameron.
So Maryland goes to 10-7. Duke is now 15-3. You have been watching exclusive coverage of ACC basketball on Raycom and Jefferson.